Depending on what camera settings you use, air dribbling can be very easy or very difficult. I'm going to quickly go over each setting to explain how they affect air dribbling and show you why I think these are the best settings for learning how to air dribble forever. Starting with the field of view, set this to 110. Field of view changes more than just how much you can see. It also affects depth perception. For example, if we lower the field of view and increase the distance, we'll be left with a very flat image, making it seem like the ball is closer to the car than it actually is. But if we raise the field of view and decrease the distance, we'll have a much better understanding of exactly how far away the ball is from our car. Up next is distance. I recommend having it between 170 and 300. Any closer than 170, it becomes difficult to see the angle of the car, and any further than 300, it becomes hard to see where to hit the ball. Around 190 is perfect. The next setting is height. Height, in my opinion, is the most important setting. Because of how ball cam works in this game, it's better to have a low height while air dribbling. I created this scene in Blender to help show what happens when we adjust the height slider during an air dribble. As you can see, the higher the camera goes, the less we can see under the ball. While it's not impossible to air dribble with a high camera, it makes it far more difficult because you can't really see what you're doing. For this reason, I recommend a height of 40 or 50. The final setting that I think is important is stiffness. A high camera stiffness creates a more stable and consistent camera, which is exactly what we want for air dribbling. The rest of the settings are a matter of preference, so adjust them to whatever looks good to you. Now that we have the camera set up, let's move on to the controls. When it comes to air dribbling forever, there's only two important settings on this page. Those two being aerial sensitivity and controller dead zone. For aerial sensitivity, I recommend keeping it low. Having low aerial sensitivity makes air dribbling much easier because it reduces overcorrection, which I'll talk more about later on in the video. Controller dead zone is going to be different for every controller. A smaller dead zone will give you a higher number of inputs, meaning better aerial control. However, if it's set too low, you might experience stick drift and miss inputs on your flips. Halfway Dead has an excellent video all about Rocket League's dead zone system on his channel Rocket Science. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's incredibly informative. I just want to add really quickly that these settings only apply to controller players, so if you play on keyboard and mouse, these aren't going to do anything. Moving on to the controller bindings, we're going to be using arrow left and right binds so that it's easier to perform tornado spins. Tornado spins are a core mechanic of air dribbling forever, which I'll talk more about later on in the video. Arrow left and right can be bound to the L1 and R1 buttons, or the circle and square buttons. The rest of the binds can be left on default or set up however you prefer. These are the binds that I use. When it comes to the car, I recommend using a flat and boxy car, such as the Breakout or the Dominus. The meshes of these cars are a very good representation of their hitboxes. This makes it easier for us to see exactly where we're hitting the ball. As for the boost, use one you can see through even when it's shooting directly into the camera. The last thing is the decal. Now the decal doesn't really matter, but I like to use the stripe decal because it helps me see where the center of my car is. And with that, let's move on to the maps we'll be using to practice air dribbling. For PC players, we'll mainly be using the Air Dribble Challenge and the Air Dribble Gauntlet Workshop maps. If you're running Rocket League through Epic Games, you'll have to download Backeyes mod as well as a plugin to load workshop maps, which I'll leave links to in the description. For console players, I'll leave a training pack code in the description that will spawn you outside of the drop shot map. I'm not entirely sure this code still works on console, so if it doesn't, I apologize. Now that we have everything set up, we're finally ready to begin talking about how to air dribble forever. The first touch is very important. We want to hit the ball so that it goes straight up. The Air Dribble Challenge map spawns the ball so that the blue light is positioned directly under the ball's center of gravity, which is exactly where we need to hit it. After we hit the ball, we're going to boost up to it and continue hitting it upwards. Hitting the ball upwards perfectly at this point is going to be very difficult to do. So instead what we're going to do is push the ball upwards in a sort of zigzag pattern. To do this, we need to push the ball up on an angle, Then tornado spin around to the other side of the ball and push it upwards in the opposite horizontal direction. Without tornado spinning to the other side of the ball, we would end up pushing the ball away until it dropped off the front of our car. This is why tornado spinning is such an important mechanic for learning how to air dribble like this. With enough practice, this 180 spin around the ball will become second nature, and over time the zigzag pattern will evolve into a pattern that resembles a spiral. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you can hit the ball's center of gravity without having to push the ball in a horizontal direction. Level 8 of the air dribble gauntlet is a great place to practice lift once you become more comfortable with this technique. When learning how to do this, there are common mistakes to look out for, a big one being overcorrecting. To stop this from happening, we want to let our car do all the work by only making very small adjustments. This means tapping our aerial buttons and moving the joystick very lightly. This is why I said having low aerial sensitivity was important. The higher our sensitivity is, the harder it is to make those small adjustments. Something I found really helpful for learning these tiny adjustments is slow-mo. You can either use the slow-mo mutator or the game speed slider found in Bake's Mod's current game tab. For people using the latter, I recommend starting at a low speed and gradually increasing it until you can air dribble at normal speed. I wouldn't recommend using slow-mo too much however, because we don't want to become accustomed to the slow game speed. Another common mistake I see is not keeping the car vertical enough. This usually happens because most people are used to moving the ball towards the net instead of going up. Fixing this mistake just takes time and practice, so don't worry too much if you find yourself doing this. After you get comfortable lifting the ball, the next thing we need to master is controlling horizontal movement. To move forward with the ball, simply boost into it the same way you would when doing the zigzag pattern mentioned earlier. But this time, instead of spinning around the ball and pushing it in the opposite direction, we're going to spin around the ball and focus on pushing it straight upwards. The ball will glide forward and we can spin around to the other side again to give it even more speed. Then when we want to stop, we simply spin to the opposite side and push the ball to slow down. In order to descend with the ball, we want to stay directly below the ball's center of gravity while we feather the boost. Be careful not to fall too fast, or else the ball will either accelerate below our car, or we won't have enough time to catch the ball before we hit the ground. Transitioning from descent to lift will be very challenging at first, but with enough practice, you'll be able to catch the ball even while going downwards at supersonic. Hovering with the ball is sort of a balance between descending and lifting. It's hard to explain how to feather for this properly, but basically you want to continue boosting until you have a little bit of upwards momentum, at which point you can let the ball drop slightly and repeat the process. Try your best to stay vertical while doing this, and use tornado spins to cancel out horizontal movement. Keeping the ball up in free play is a great way to practice hovering. The sparks you see while air dribbling show where your car's hitbox and the ball's hitbox are colliding, meaning the sparks should be flying out from the center of the ball. Feathering can be used while we're lifting the ball to help reposition our nose closer to the ball's center of gravity. But be careful because feathering too much while lifting can become a really bad habit as well. If you find it hard to spin around under the ball, try practicing using these mutators. A good way to start an air dribble in free play is to spawn the ball on your car, jump once, and then lean back. This should pop the ball up while leaving your car centered underneath the ball. If you find practicing getting too repetitive, try setting challenges for yourself in the workshop maps. For example, try to hit the ceiling in the air dribble challenge map. Don't get too discouraged if you're finding it hard to air dribble for more than a few seconds at first. It takes months to be able to get to the point where you can air dribble forever, but if you commit yourself to the process rather than the result, you'll be able to do it. Improving doesn't always mean getting a better rank or a better PB. It means learning from mistakes and trying again. This might be weird coming from a Rocket League tutorial, but whenever you're learning a new skill, especially fine motor skills like this, get as much sleep as you can. Being well rested will improve reaction time and reinforce muscle memory. I want to thank my friend Miriam for helping me make this video. I'll put his Twitch in the description if you want to go check him out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. I hope this helps and thank you for watching.